In the early morning of a suburban American city, where the coolness of quiet streets mingled with the gentle light of the rising sun, stood the home of the Harris family. At first glance, everything seemed perfect. The neat facade, the well-maintained lawn, and the soft light in the windows promised coziness and security, as if created especially for those who appreciate order and harmony. This house was not merely a dwelling, but the embodiment of the dream that Evelyn Harris had cherished her entire life. Evelyn, a woman with deep eyes full of care and warmth, lived there surrounded by all the attributes of family happiness. She was a loving wife and a devoted mother, and her appearance, refined yet gentle, spoke of the wisdom gained through lived years behind every gesture. Every look, every sigh of hers seemed to permeate the air around her, creating an atmosphere of tranquility and confidence. Living with Evelyn in this house was her husband, Nicholas Harris, a charming and successful man who always found time to support her in the most difficult moments, bestowing upon her a sense of reliability with his calm smile. Their only son, Oliver, was the center of their little universe, to whom every minute was devoted as if he were living proof of their family harmony. However, despite the outward shine of an ideal life, the first doubts had begun to sprout in Evelyn's heart. Sitting by the large kitchen window as the first rays of the sun touched her face, she involuntarily wondered, is everything really as perfect as it should be? These barely perceptible, almost unnoticed thoughts, like a soft whisper of the wind, seeped into her consciousness, leaving behind a feeling of gentle anxiety that she tried to hide behind a smile. Every day in this house became an arena for the smallest details that only intensified the inner premonition of change. Nicholas, always punctual and confident, sometimes returned home with a slight weariness, and a shadow of unspoken words flickered in his gaze, as if he carried with him some thoughts left unuttered. Oliver, once open and cheerful, increasingly withdrew from communication. His room was locked, and his phone, constantly vibrating in the silence of the night, began to serve as a silent witness to his deepest secrets. These seemingly insignificant details, which might appear ordinary to an outsider, took on immense significance for Evelyn. Deep down, she increasingly sensed that behind the sparkling exterior of family happiness lay secrets capable of destroying this seemingly unshakable world. Every evening, as the soft dusk descended upon the house, Evelyn sat in silence at the table, immersed in her thoughts. Her inner voice never ceased, quietly echoing questions. Could trust turn out to be an illusion? And each such word made her heart contract with a slight pain. These thoughts, running through her mind, created the impression that behind every smile, behind every warm look, there might be something more, something capable of forever changing the usual course of life. It was precisely at such moments, when the external idols seemed flawless, that Evelyn began to notice how the meticulously constructed illusion gradually started to crack. As if behind the facade of the perfect house, where everything was in its place, a storm was hidden, capable of tearing apart the usual order of life. In her heart, the thought was born that the ideal illusion, created over years of love and effort, had already begun to give signs of breaking, heralding an impending change whose full force she had not yet completely realized. Thus began a new day in the Harris home, a day when, behind the outward shine of harmony, the first elusive signs of an approaching change emerged, forcing Evelyn to wonder, could everything I have long considered ideal be nothing more than a fragile illusion? And these penetrating and unsettling questions firmly took root in her soul, foretelling a storm that would turn her world upside down forever. Each day, as the morning sun shone ever brighter upon the cozy Harris home, small, almost imperceptible changes began to occur within it, gradually destroying the former idol. Outwardly, everything continued to shine with calm and harmony, but for Evelyn, these changes became the harbingers of an approaching storm. Oliver, once cheerful and open, increasingly secluded himself in his room. The door he used to leave wide open for conversation and play was now almost always locked. Every night, as silence enveloped the house, Evelyn heard barely perceptible sounds from behind her son's closed door. A soft tapping, as if someone was trying to convey something important to her, but did not have the courage to reveal it. Moreover, Oliver's phone, the constant companion of his personal secrets, vibrated more and more often, breaking the nocturnal silence and causing Evelyn's heart to beat faster with anxiety. Nicholas Harris, Evelyn's husband, also began to change. His return home became accompanied by a slight weariness, and more often a shadow of unspoken words flickered in his gaze. He used to always find time for the family dinner, but now he frequently came home late, missing the usual moments when the family gathered at the table. His words became shorter, and his smile tense, as if he himself could not find the right words to console Evelyn after a long day. Each such return left Evelyn with the feeling that an invisible barrier was beginning to form between them. Even the mundane moments of daily life began to fill with anxiety. Breakfast, when everything seemed as usual, now passed in an atmosphere of silence, where every detail, a soft cough, a simple movement of hands, even the faint rustle of clothing, took on meaning, making her wonder, something is not right here. Evelyn caught herself constantly returning to the question, why do I feel this chill inside when everything should be fine? These questions, like echoes, reverberated throughout her consciousness, amplifying the sense of impending chaos. In those moments when Evelyn sat in the kitchen watching the house slowly sink into the evening silence, her body began to react. Her heartbeat quickened, her hands trembled slightly, and a subtle tingling spread over her skin, as if heralding impending misfortune. In those minutes, she unconsciously pressed her hands to her chest, trying to silence the inner voice that grew louder, saying that behind the seeming perfection lay something dangerous and destructive. Thus, despite the external harmony, within the Harris house, the first signs of alarm began to form slowly, almost imperceptibly. Each new day brought more questions and doubts, making Evelyn feel that the ideal illusion, so meticulously constructed over the years, was starting to crack, heralding a storm capable of forever changing the usual course of life. One of those gloomy evenings when the world outside was already sinking into the twilight, Evelyn could no longer ignore what troubled her soul. Every little detail in the house now seemed to her a harbinger of something terrible, and the inner anxiety became unbearable. A feeling arose within her that her world, the very carefully constructed facade of family happiness, was about to collapse under the weight of accumulated secrets. One evening, while in the corridor, Evelyn noticed that the door to her son Oliver's room was ajar. Her heart began to beat faster. An unknown sense of premonition made her freeze for a moment. Approaching closer, she saw that in the very corner of the room, almost hidden in the darkness, lay a small wooden box. It was so out of place in the familiar order, as if it had been left there by chance to forever shatter the illusion of security. With trembling hands as if driven by an unknown force, Evelyn slowly approached the box. Each step was accompanied by an inner whisper. What could this mean? Her heart pounded as if trying to burst through her chest, and every second stretched into eternity. When she took the box into her hands, time seemed to stop. The small lock, covered with a thin layer of dust, looked as fragile as her long-destroyed dreams of stability. With effort, as she opened the lock, her eyes reflected not only determination, but also despair, mixed with the premonition of inevitable pain. Inside the box, neatly arranged letters, handwritten notes, and printed messages appeared as witnesses to some forbidden affair that she had never even dreamed of. Every line on the yellowed pages cut her heart as if invisible knives were penetrating the very essence of her trust. Evelyn sat on the cold floor of the room, feeling a storm of emotions rising in her soul. With every line she read, memories of how she had envisioned her family, of warmth, security, and unconditional love, awoke within her. But now those memories mingled with the pain of betrayal, revealing the true face of the illusion on which she had built her life for so long. The questions that had once seemed trivial now took on new, tormenting significance. How could everything turn out this way? Why did I not notice these subtle hints? And who is this stranger that shattered all my dreams? Her mind was engulfed in chaos, in which past and present merged into one unbearable picture. The handwriting on the pages, so graceful and at the same time wild, spoke of forbidden passion and secrets hidden behind smiles and tender words. Every phrase, every word seemed to say, everything you considered ideal was built on lies. In that moment, Evelyn felt the cold reality invading her soul, leaving behind scars that would never heal. Sitting on the floor, she felt tears beginning to trickle silently down her cheeks. It was not merely a revelation, it was a point of no return when the whole world she had known began to crack under the onslaught of truth. She understood that she would never be able to view her family the same way again, that every touch, every smile would henceforth remind her of the betrayal hidden behind the facade of perfection. That silence, filled with the sounds of her own heart and the whispers of unspoken words, marked the beginning of a long journey of internal disintegration. Evelyn realized that the illusion, created over years of love and hard work, was merely a thin shell behind which lay an abyss of lies. And now, with the truth revealed, she had to accept the inevitable. Her world would never be the same again. Thus, on that night, with a broken heart and a soul tormented by pain, Evelyn understood that she faced a difficult choice, a choice that would determine the rest of her life. And it was in that moment, when the moonlight pierced through the darkness, that she felt a determination beginning to form inside her, one that was ready to confront whatever lay ahead, despite all the hopelessness and pain of the unveiled truth. After the forbidden revelation, Evelyn felt as if the whole world around her was turning into an endless labyrinth of memories and inexpressible pain. Every minute seemed like an eternity, and every new morning was a trial in which past and present merged into an unresolved pattern. From the first moments of awakening, Evelyn woke with a sense of emptiness, as if everything she had believed in could no longer restore the former warmth and coziness. Lying in bed, she remembered the times when the Harris house was filled with laughter, when the aroma of fresh-baked goods filled the kitchen, and every evening turned into a celebration. But now these memories turned into pain, as if the happy moments were gradually dissolving into the dark shadows of loss. Throughout the day, her mind repeatedly returned to questions that no longer gave her any peace. Why did I not notice the warning signs? How could such a meticulously constructed illusion be nothing more than a fragile structure ready to collapse under the weight of truth? These thoughts echoed in her head like remnants of a long-forgotten nightmare, causing her heart to beat faster and her hands to clench involuntarily. At work, amid the bustle and daily tasks, Evelyn increasingly felt her thoughts carrying her far away from everyday concerns. In moments of silence, when the office noise subsided, she closed her eyes and allowed herself to wander through the tangled corridors of memory. Every detail of her past life, every smile, every warm look now seemed like echoes of lost happiness, contrasting with the cold reality of betrayal. She felt the thin line between the bright past and the gloomy present fading, as if all emotions merged into one inexpressible mixture of pain, loss, and confusion. Sometimes walking along the familiar streets of her suburban town, she caught herself staring into space, as if trying to find even the slightest glimpse of the lost world. Every passerby, every random encounter sparked an internal struggle, and in those moments she wondered, is it ever possible to return to what was, or is everything lost forever? These thoughts filled her consciousness like darkness that gradually consumed even the brightest moments of life. In the quiet evenings, when the house sank into dusk, Evelyn sat alone at the table, trying to comprehend her state of being. Her eyes wandered over old photographs capturing happy moments, smiles, embraces, joyful faces. But with every new glance, the pain intensified, and an impression arose in her soul that these happy days now belonged to another, inaccessible world. She imagined that every moment of her past happiness had turned into a ghost that haunted her in this labyrinth of pain. The emotional chaos overwhelmed her with every passing second, turning even a simple conversation with colleagues into a battle with herself. Her voice sometimes trembled as she tried to speak of the past, and her words turned into a disjointed stream of memories that carried both solace and despair. Every little sound, even the soft breeze outside the window, seemed a reminder that the ideal life was nothing more than an illusion, and that the truth, filled with pain and betrayal, had already emerged. Evelyn's inner dialogue was like an endless monologue, where every question met a plea for forgiveness and an attempt to find an answer that, it seemed, had long since lost its meaning. Why couldn't I see the warning signs? What if I was not ready to accept the truth myself? These questions echoed through her mind, deepening her sense of helplessness. In every sigh, in every quiet rustle of her soul, there was a struggle between preserving the remnants of past happiness and the need to accept the bitter reality. Then on one of those nights when the darkness seemed almost tangible and her thoughts were particularly obsessive, Evelyn realized that the labyrinth of her inner struggle had no exit. It was a moment when past and present merged into a single, inexpressible pain, and every new question only deepened the abyss of her suffering. She understood that if she continued to live in a world of illusions, she would never find true healing. Every new day, filled with despair and loneliness, demanded the courage to make a choice, either to accept the truth, no matter how bitter it was, or to drown in an endless river of delusions. In this quiet battle for her soul, when every step was taken with incredible pain, Evelyn found within herself a quiet spark of determination. Although the path to healing would be arduous and full of sacrifices, she realized that only an honest acknowledgement of her own suffering could be the first step toward rebirth. And at that moment, as her heart beat with new strength, she felt the thin line between the past and the present begin to glow with hope, even if that hope was shrouded in darkness and pain. In the evening, when the city was enveloped in a soft shroud of twilight, Evelyn, overcome by an unbearable sense of premonition, decided that she could no longer live in a world of illusions. She quietly left the house, her heart pounding rapidly, and every thought screamed of the approaching storm. Her intuition told her that today she would learn the whole truth, the truth that would destroy what she had believed to be unbreakable. On the parking lot of a small hotel, illuminated by the dim light of street lamps, Evelyn saw her son, Oliver. He stood near a parked car, his gaze distant, and his walk uncertain, as if he himself could not comprehend the depth of what was happening. Next to him, as if the embodiment of a forbidden secret, stood a woman with an elegant appearance, but with an inexplicable mystery in her eyes. Laura Blackwell. Evelyn froze in the shadows, watching their quiet conversation. Every touch, every look, and every slight smile spoke of a connection between them that she had never suspected. With pain in her heart and a soul filled with the premonition of betrayal, she felt all the happy memories of her family begin to crack at the seams. What had once been a symbol of unity and love now transformed into bitterness of loss and deceit. At that moment, time seemed to stop. Evelyn felt her hands trembling, her breath catching, and every second stretched into eternity. Her inner voice, long silent, now shouted, "How could this happen? Why did I not notice that everything was beginning to fall apart?" These questions, like echoes carried through the silence of the night, amplified the feeling of pain and betrayal, tearing her apart from within. Oliver and Laura stood so close that it seemed their souls merged into one forbidden secret. Their looks, filled with tenderness and hidden passion, silently confirmed that the ideal which Evelyn had cherished for years was nothing more than a thin shell concealing a bitter truth. Every movement, every touch between them was like a blow, leaving scars on her heart. Evelyn's heart beat with incredible force, and she felt a determination rising within her. This moment, filled with pain and hopelessness, became the point of no return. She understood that she could no longer live in a world of pretense, that every touch, every smile would henceforth be forever linked with the betrayal she had uncovered. With tears glistening in her eyes from the bitterness of loss, Evelyn took a decisive step forward. In her soul, an abyss of unspoken words opened up, and as if gathering her last strength, she emerged from the shadows, ready to confront this harsh reality. Her gaze met Oliver's cold stare, and in that silent moment between them, everything was conveyed. Nothing could ever restore the happiness of before. Against the backdrop of the hotel's flickering lights, and in the deep silence of the night, Evelyn confronted the very essence of betrayal. It was not merely a meeting of two people. It was a collision with the truth that had shattered her perfect world. And in that moment she understood. there was no going back. Now before her lay a painful choice, either to live in silence, allowing the pain to gradually corrode her soul, or to expose the truth, no matter how bitter it was, and accept the inevitable changes that would forever alter her life. In the quiet of early morning, as the city began to wake, Evelyn stood before a mirror, looking at her reflection, and saw not the woman she once was, but a new one, worn out by pain yet full of resolve. The traces of tears and hardship were evident on her face, and her eyes, once filled with bright hope, now held deep sorrow and undeniable determination. At that moment, she realized that the time had come to make a choice, either to expose the entire truth, no matter how bitter it was, or to continue living in silence, letting the pain slowly erode the remnants of her former world. Sitting on the old sofa that had once witnessed joyful family evenings, Evelyn immersed herself in her thoughts. Every new sigh and every drop of tears served as a reminder that everything she had so meticulously built over the years had turned out to be nothing more than an illusion. Her inner voice, initially quiet but growing louder, demanded, "Act. Speak the truth. Do not fear the pain. It will be the beginning of healing." Alongside that voice was another, more cautious one, whispering, "Perhaps it is better to remain silent and preserve even a spark of past happiness." These contradictory forces battled within her like two relentless shadows, each striving to determine her fate. Glancing out the window, she saw the first rays of dawn breaking through the dense clouds, a symbol of hope that stood in defiance of the darkness within her. This contrast of light and darkness became for Evelyn a sign that the truth, no matter how bitter, must prevail. Every second seemed imbued with fateful significance, and every moment was an opportunity to take a step toward a new life. With a heavy yet determined heart, Evelyn rose from the sofa and, taking a deep breath, walked to the door. In her soul, a quiet but growing melody of resolve began to play, like the morning sun piercing through the night's gloom. She understood that inevitable changes awaited her, and that this choice, either to reveal all the pain and truth or to continue living in silence, would determine the course of her future. At the crossroads between the past, filled with illusions, and a future where the truth might be unbearable, Evelyn made her decision. She resolved that she could no longer remain a prisoner of deception. With each step away from the familiar world, she felt the weight of the past gradually lifting, making room for new, albeit painful possibilities. It was like breaking old chains that granted her freedom and a chance for rebirth. Thus, in the quiet of the morning light, as the world around her began to wake, Evelyn took her first decisive step toward a new life. She opened the door and stepped out into a world where every new morning promised to be the beginning of something real, even if the path was strewn with scars. Her voice, full of quiet yet inescapable determination, sounded like a call to truth, a call capable of shattering the chains of the past and opening the door to a future where she could live honestly, despite all her losses. This was her choice, a choice between truth and silence, which forever changed her destiny, granting her the opportunity to be free from lies and to embrace a new beginning.